Okay, in this video segment, we're going to do a little recap of the Predator-Prey game that we played outside. It's an illustration of what we are going to call an evolutionary arms race. And it shows how two species, when they interact, they will be causing evolutionary changes in each other. So here was the basic situation. We had a field, and in that field, we put seeds on the ground, and they represented prey individuals of the prey species, and they showed variation in color and size. And then we humans were the predators, and we were equipped with different types of devices: a knife, a fork, a spoon, a tweezer. And these were our prey capturing devices. So the fact that there were 4 different types means we were simulating the variation in the predator population. But remember, all of these individual predators are members of the same species, as are the seeds. Even though they show variation, they're members of the same species. So, in the game, in a given amount of time, predators then have to just go out and capture as much prey as they can. And remember, if you're a predator, you had to capture an above average amount of food in order to stay alive. Those who captured a lower than average amount of food are going to be eliminated. If you captured above average amount of food, you remain alive. And so what we did was we sort of different from what happens in nature, we allowed those individuals who didn't capture enough food, they didn't just disappear entirely as they would in nature, but we reincarnated them back into the game as the offspring of those individuals who did survive. And that represented the fact that the survivors were reproducing. They get to be the parents because they had an adaptive trait. Their prey capture utensils were more effective than the other ones over here. And so those with adaptive traits are going to be the parents of the next generation. And so the next generation population will have more individuals with those useful traits. And then we repeat the process. And over time, we saw changes in the makeup of the predator population. Of course, if we were keeping track, we would also note changes in the prey species as well. So in the beginning, there were maybe 4 different types of colors of seeds and different sizes. And for some of the seed types, very few of them survived in the wild. In other words, a lot of predators ate them. For some seed types, like the small green ones, there were many still left in the playing field because predators did not eat many of them. And so just as the predators reproduce, those who survived get to reproduce to populate the next generation, so too with the prey. And so the individuals of the prey species that survived, we reproduced them, added the extra seeds back into the field to show that reproduction process, and then repeated the predator-prey interaction. So what the game illustrates is how the interaction of predator and prey over time will cause changes in the populations of both species. Over time, after several generations, the adaptive traits are going to be more common. For example, let's say the spoons had an advantage over the forks and the knives and the tweezers. And over time, there will be more and more individuals with that trait as the survivors with that trait reproduce and populate the next generation. Likewise, the seeds that are hardest to capture by predators are going to be the most numerous and have more babies. And so they will come to dominate the population after several generations. To introduce some terminology here, we can say that there are 2 types of selection going on. The food, the seeds, are selecting predator traits. In this case, we're going to say the small green seeds, the food is selecting for the most efficient collecting device, the spoon, but against those other types of devices, the forks, tweezers, and knives. So the trait that is selected for is the trait that does the best in that environment. So the small green seeds are selecting for the predators with the spoon and against the predators with the other traits. At the same time, the predators with the spoons are selecting prey species, selecting for good camouflage and selecting against poor camouflage. So those big seeds that were easy to see, the spoon device was very effective at gathering up those seeds. So those seeds are being selected against. So the trait that's being selected for is the one that is most successful in the population. Notice the prey is selecting the predators, and the predators are selecting the prey. If we were keeping track, we would notice numerical changes in the populations. So each type of predator was equally present in the first generation, 5 of each, let's say. But over time, after second generation, third generation, fourth generation, we would see the numbers changing. So for example, the knife and the fork, those variations disappeared from the population. In contrast, the spoon, numbers of individuals with the spoon increased over time. Clearly the most adaptive trait. Notice we don't get an overall increase in the number of predators because of various environmental factors like the lack of food and so on, competition with others. So over time, the predator population remains sort of stable, but the makeup of the predator population was changing. Now, as an exercise, we could take this information and put it into a bar graph. The y-axis would be the number of individuals in the population. In the first generation, there were 5 of each type of predator. And then we could use the data in the table to construct the bars of the appropriate heights for the second generation, the third generation, and the fourth generation. And that would be a nice graphical display of the data in this table.